Hi, good morning to all of you for our daily devotional. And I'm going to focus in these next few devotionals on our church's theme for the year. It is gratitude and generosity. To be grateful and generous. It's a great way to live. It's the way that I would want to live every day of my life, pinching myself of what it is that God has done for me, how it is that I get to have all of this, to have a perspective that keeps me clear, and thus living generously as a result of that. Generously in the way that I love others, give to God, give Him my first fruits, give Him my service, give Him my all. Now, this all begins when I can really appreciate the gospel message. And we're going to look at an illustration today and look at it from the Holy Land that will help us with this. Now, in 2 Corinthians 8, verse 9, "For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, though He was rich, yet for your sake He became poor, so that you by His poverty might become rich." Wow, Jesus, sitting exalted and rich, impoverished Himself so that we could be showered with riches. What a beautiful thought that's there. And it's not too different from what is said a little later in 2 Corinthians 9, that we are enriched in every way to be generous in every way, and thus producing thanksgiving to God. Now, I want to take us to a story in the Old Testament where a massive gift was given, an intervention and a grace on the part of Saul, of all people, to the men of Jabesh, Gilead. And this story takes place in 1 Samuel 11. It says in verse 1, "Then Nahash the Ammonite," he was the king of the Ammonites, and he was besieging Jabesh, Gilead. He went up, besieged Jabesh, Gilead, and all the men of Jabesh said to Nahash, "Make a treaty with us, and we will serve you." They were in a tight spot. But Nahash the Ammonite said to them, "On this condition will I make a treaty with you, that I gouge out all of your right eyes and thus bring disgrace on all Israel." So this is a monster that is bearing down on the men of Jabesh Gilead, and he is bent on nothing less than absolute desecration and disgrace. The elders of Jabesh said to Nahash to him, "Give us 7 days respite that we may send messengers through all the territory of Israel. Then if there is no one to save us, we will give ourselves up to you." When the messengers came to Gibeah of Saul, they reported the matter in the ears of the people, and all the people wept aloud. Now behold, Saul was coming from the field behind his oxen, and Saul said, "What is wrong with the people? Why are they weeping?" So they told him the news of the men of Jabesh. The Spirit of God rushed upon Saul when he heard the words, and his anger was greatly kindled. He took a yoke of oxen, cut them in pieces, sent them throughout the territory of Israel by the hand of the messengers, saying, "Whoever does not come out after Saul and Samuel, so shall it be done to his oxen." Then the dread of the Lord fell upon all the people, and they came out as one man. When he mustered them at Bezek, the people of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. This is a high point for Saul's career. And they said to the messengers who had come, "Thus shall you say to the men of Jabesh Gilead, tomorrow by this time the sun is hot, and you shall have salvation." When the messengers came and told the men of Jabesh, they were glad. Therefore the men of Jabesh said, "Tomorrow we will give ourselves to you," they say to Nahash, "and you may do to us whatever seems good to you." And the next day Saul put the people in 3 companies. They came into the midst of the camp in the morning watch, struck down the Ammonites until the heat of the day, and those who survived were scattered, so that no 2 of them were left together. Wow. Deliverance beyond anything that they could have expected at that time. That would have made a serious impression. And it's also a gift, a serious gift. And today we think that gifts should have no strings, but not so in the ancient world. It was always thought that gifts should have strings. Why? Because gifts should always produce gratitude, and gratitude always creates its own strings. And those strings are not manipulative strings. Those strings are strings of community and bond and loyalty. And with a gift then is a relationship that is deeply established. Now, here's what's interesting is that Saul had a rather ignominious career as king, and ultimately when he died. It says in 1 Samuel 31, thus Saul died, and his 3 sons, his armor-bearer, and all his men on the same day together. And when the men of Israel, who were on the other side of the valley, and those beyond the Jordan, saw that the men of Israel had fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they abandoned their cities and fled. And the Philistines came and lived in them. When the Philistines come in, they strip the slain, and they find Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa, and they go about desecrating him. They cut off his head, stripped off his armor, sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to carry the good news to the house of their idols and to the people. They put his armor in the temple of Ashtoreth, and they fastened his body to the wall at Bethshan. When the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan, and they came to Jabesh and burned them there. And they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree in Jabesh and fasted 7 days. That's a picture of friendship, a picture of loyalty, a picture of community. A people who had had a great kindness done to them, a great gift given to them, were always a people of great gratitude for Saul. It never left them, even over some almost 40 years in between events. And when they hear, when they hear of how Saul was so dishonored, he and his sons, they march all night. They repeat almost what Saul had done for them, march in through the Philistine ranks into the heart of their cities and take down Saul from the wall of Bethshan. We're going to go to Bethshan and see a little clip from this just to conclude. But before we head over to that, let me simply encourage you with this. What has Jesus done for you? What has he done for me? He has given us all. He has plunged himself into poverty so that we could be rich in every way. How can we then recognize that we have strings attached through our gratitude? How can I serve Jesus more generously? How can I more vigorously, like the men of Jabesh Gilead, show my massive gratitude to Jesus in the way that I learn about him, study him, connect to him, have a relationship with him through prayer, the way that I represent him to all that are around me, even in these difficult times, to get creative. The men of Jabesh Gilead didn't have an easy time to show it to Saul, but boy, did they ever, and so shall we.
Okay, we've just climbed the hill. It's the Tell, or an archaeological hill of ruins, and we're on top of that right here in a place called Bethshan. Now, Bethshan might be known to you a little bit more through the familiarity of the New Testament, where it is known as the Decapolis. And after Jesus had healed Legion, that man then, filled with gratitude, goes to the Decapolis to be able to make Jesus known and to tell everyone what God had done for him. Now, there's also a very tender and beautiful story of loyalty that happens here in Bethshan, and one that is worth really remembering for ourselves. Because here in this city, something else of really remarkable quality occurred, and it is a story of Saul. Initially, Saul, when he became king, was able to go to the aid of the people of Jabesh Gilead, who were under an intense pressure and under the threat of having their right eye plucked out, them being desecrated as a people and shamed. Nobody was there to help them. They were in dire straits, but Saul came to their rescue. He zoomed to their rescue. They only had 7 days. Saul made it in that amount of time and vanquished the enemy, saved the people. Now, Saul then went on to have a less than stellar career as king, rather ignominious. But even at the end of his life, he dies on Mount Gilboa. And after his death, the people of Bethshan take his body and hang it on the wall of the city, both Saul and Jonathan's bodies. When the people of Jabesh Gilead hear of this, no other people run to his aid, but the people who were so grateful for what it is that Saul had done, what do? The valiant men rise up, they march all night long in loyalty to the one who was so kind to them, and they give another great act of kindness to him. They remove the sting of shame, remove his body from the wall, and give him an honorable death and an honorable burial. It's a great story of an act of grace begets loyalty, begets a long-term continuing relationship, one built on gratitude and one built initially on grace. It's a great story, and we can learn it right here in Bethshan.